welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 battle report brought to you by the Legion Wargaming, and welcome to the world of Caladis, where the forces of humanity once again find themselves embattled against the alien Eldar. Despite having overwhelmingly superior forces deployed on this planet, the Astra Militarum armies of the Lord Marshal subsector are being constantly outmanoeuvred and defeated by the swift and cunning Xenos. Fortunately, aid has arrived in the form of the mighty Astartes, known to the citizens of the Imperium as the Space Wolves. Their Rune Priests, led by none other than their High Priest Njal Stormcaller himself, quickly realise that the Eldar Seers in command of their warhosts can predict every stratagem of the Imperial forces and resolve to strike directly at the alien High Command, decapitating the Eldar hosts and leaving them at the mercy of the immense Imperial Guard war machine. Of course, with their incredible powers of foresight, the Eldar Seers quickly divine this new threat and summon their forces to meet the attack of the Sons of Russ. As the wolves discover the location of the Seers in the ruined outskirts of this city and prepare to launch their assault, a war host of Craftworld Iyanden rushes to the Seers' aid. The battle today is 2,000 points. It is Eldar Craftworlds versus Space Wolves, and the mission is Purge the Alien, with hammer and anvil deployment. Let's take a look at the armies. This 2,000 point Space Wolves army is battle forged and consists of a single, the Wolves Unleashed detachment, and a single formation. Starting with the formation, it is a Wyrdstorm Brotherhood led by Njal Stormcaller. It also contains a Mastery Level 2 Rune Priest with a Runic Axe, a Mastery Level 1 Rune Priest with a Runic Sword and a Combi Plasma, and another Mastery Level 1 Rune Priest with a Runic Axe and a Combi Plasma. The main body of this army is, of course, the Wolves Unleashed detachment, with two mandatory HQ choices. The first is a Wolf Guard battle leader. He's wearing Terminator armour, he has a Wolf Claw and a Storm Shield, and the second HQ choice is also a Wolf Guard battle leader. He's also wearing Terminator armour, he has a Wolf Claw and a Combi Plasma, and this detachment contains three troops choices. The first is a pack of Grey Hunters, 10 strong. They're led by a Wolf Guard battle leader. He has a Wolf Claw and a Combi Plasma. Two of the Grey Hunters have plasma guns. One also has a power axe, and they are mounted in a Rhino. The second troop's choice is another pack of Grey Hunters. They are led by a Wolf Guard pack leader with a Wolf Claw and a Combi Plasma. Two of these Grey Hunters have plasma guns. One has a power axe, and they are mounted in a Rhino as well. And the third troop's choice is another pack of Grey Hunters. This time there are 5 of them. One of them has a plasma gun and one of them has a power sword, and they are mounted in a drop pod which is equipped with a locator beacon. There is a single elite choice, which is a pack of Wolf Guard wearing Terminator armour. 2 of them have thunder hammers and storm shields. One has a pair of Wolf Claws. One has a Wolf Claw and an assault cannon, and the final Wolf Guard has a Wolf Claw and a storm shield. There is a single fast attack choice, which is a pack of 8 Sky Claws. One of them has a flamer, and 2 heavy support choices. Both of them are packs of Long Fangs. They are both 6 strong, and each pack has 5 Long Fangs with missile launchers. These are the wolves. Will they be able to hunt down and slay the Eldar Seers? Let's take a look at what the Eldar are bringing along. This 2,000 point Eldar Craftworlds army is battle forged and consists of a single combined arms detachment and 2 formations, the first of which is the Seer Council. We have 2 Farseers and 7 Warlocks. 5 of them have singing spears, and of course they have their immense psychic might. The second formation is an aspect host. We've got one squad of 5 Dark Reapers led by an Exarch, another squad of 5 Dark Reapers led by an Exarch, and a squad of 6 Fire Dragons led by an Exarch, and of course these aspect warriors will have ballistic skill 5. The combined arms detachment are the Eldar of Iyanden, and they are led by their own Farseer. He is riding an Eldar jet bike, and he has brought along 4 troops choices. The first are some Windrider jet bikers. There are 6 of them. They all have scatter lasers, and they have been joined by a Warlock Skyrunner with a singing spear. We've also got a squad of 10 Dire Avengers. They're led by an Exarch with a power weapon and a shimmer shield. And then we have the Iyanden Guardians, 2 squads of 10. Both of them are led by Warlocks. The first squad has a star cannon and the second has a shuriken cannon. We have 2 fast attack choices. The first is squad of 3 Shining Spears, led by an Exarch with a Star Lance, and the second is a Wave Serpent with twin-linked Bright Lances. Rounding off this detachment, we have a single heavy support choice, which is a Falcon Grav Tank with a Pulse Laser and a Scatter Laser. These are the Eldar. They have formidable psychic might with 3 Farseers and 10 Warlocks. They begin with 19 warp charges. Will it be enough to fight off the Sons of Russ? We shall see as we move into deployment. And the armies have deployed, with the Space Wolves commencing their ground assault. On either flank they have a pack of Grey Hunters in a Rhino, and in the centre the Long Fangs are already taking up excellent firing positions. We have 1 pack on the roof of this bunker readying their missile launchers, and the other pack taking up a position behind these barricades. But the Space Wolves have left a lot of their force in Deep Strike Reserve. We have the Wolfguard Terminators. They've been joined by one of the Wolfguard battle leaders and Njal Stormcaller. We've also got the other pack of Grey Hunters in their drop pod. They have been joined by the other Wolfguard battle leader and the 3 remaining Rune Priests of the Wyrdstorm Brotherhood. And of course we've got the Sky Claws waiting to descend using their jump packs. Meanwhile, the Eldar have deployed their entire force. Over on their left flank we've got the Wind Riders. They have been joined by the Farseer Skyrunner, and to their right, advancing into these ruins, we have 1 squad of Iyanden Guardians. They have the fire support of 1 of the squads of Dark Reapers, who have taken up an excellent vantage point on the roof of this ruined Imperial building, and they also have the support of the Fire Dragons, who are mounted in the Falcon. The Seer Council have emerged onto this balcony. They intend to direct the battle from there. Above them we have the other squad of Dark Reapers readying to open fire, and advancing through the remains of the ruined building we have the other squad of Iyanden Guardians. All the way over on the right flank, the Eldar have the Dire Avengers mounted in the Wave Serpent, and all the way back, right on their table edge, we have the Shining Spears, evidently looking to countercharge any deep striking Space Wolves. This is shaping up to be a battle of cataclysmic psychic potential. We are very much looking forward to it. The Space Wolves deployed first, so unless the Eldar can seize initiative, we go into Space Wolves turn 1. And with the Eldar failing to seize the initiative, the Space Wolves have commenced their first turn, and their drop pod has hammered to earth in the centre of the Eldar positions, and the Grey Hunters, the Wolfguard battle leader, and 3 of the Rune Priests have come piling out into cover in this ruined building. They have plenty of targets. In fact, they are surrounded. Will the Space Wolves ground forces move up quickly in support? We shall see in Space Wolves movement phase turn 1. End of a very quick Space Wolves movement phase turn 1, with both packs of Grey Hunters on either flank moving up at cruising speed in their Rhinos. Meanwhile, the 2 packs of Long Fangs have held position, preparing to unleash their opening volley. With the newly arrived Rune Priests, will we see the elements unleashed? Space Wolves Psychic Phase turn 1. End of Space Wolves Psychic Phase turn 1, and the Eldar Seers look on with grave concern at the events which are unfolding, as one of the Rune Priests threw all 10 of the Space Wolves dice to conjure up a living storm. He was successful with 7 warp charges. He perilled but suffered no other ill effects. The Eldar threw all 25 of their dice in an effort to deny it, but just failed, and 19 hits were inflicted on the Falcon. A lot of 6s were rolled. The Eldar Grav Tank desperately jinked, but was torn apart by the living storm. That is first blood. It's also a point for destroying a unit, and that is an excellent start for the Space Wolves. the fire dragons have come pouring out of their wrecked transport, taking cover behind the main body of the destroyed vehicle. That is very ominous for the Eldar, as Njal Stormcaller has not even arrived yet. Let's see what the Space Wolves can do with their first volley of fire. Space Wolf shooting phase, turn 1. End of Space Wolf shooting phase, turn 1, and unable to see the fire dragons behind the wreckage of the Falcon. These Grey Hunters and the Rune Priests and the Wolfguard battle leader all turn their weaponry on the Dark Reapers in this ruined building, and a hail of 8 plasma shots and a lot of bolt rounds was enough to wipe out the Eldar Aspect Warriors. The Space Wolves are pleased with that, but the Longfangs were not as successful with the first pack, managing to miss with all 5 of their missile launchers as they targeted the Dark Reapers in the central building. But this pack fared better, managing to take out 3 of the Aspect Warriors. Meanwhile, the 2 packs of Grey Hunters moved flat out in their Rhinos. They are moving as quickly as possible to their brothers' support, as these Space Wolves are looking very vulnerable, surrounded by an awful lot of Eldar. With no assaults, that is the end of Space Wolves turn 1. They have managed to get first blood. They have got a point for destroying the Falcon and another point for destroying one of the squads of Dark Reapers. They are happy, but the Eldar are preparing to respond as we go into Eldar Craftworlds turn 1. End of Eldar movement phase turn 1, and witnessing the destruction of the Falcon close at hand. The orders of the Seer Council are clear. They want all of these Space Wolves, especially their Rune Priests, to be destroyed, and the Eldar are moving to accomplish just that as the Shining Spears approach and the Fire Dragons move out from behind the wreckage of their Falcon. This squad of Guardians have also turned back. They are ignoring the Grey Hunters approaching in their Rhino in order to concentrate fire on these Space Wolves. And on the far left, the Wind Riders have moved forward, but they have banked round to add the fire of their scatter lasers if necessary as well. The Seers themselves have held position. Meanwhile, above them, the Dark Reaper Exarch has moved back to get into coherency with his last surviving Dark Reaper. These Iyanden Guardians have held position, and on the far right, the Dire Avengers have advanced in their Wave Serpent. Looks like they are preparing to try and knock out this Rhino with its twin-linked Bright Lances. But first, the Eldar intend to demonstrate that they will not be overawed in the Psychic phase. Eldar Craftworlds Psychic phase, turn 1. End of Eldar Psychic phase, turn 1, and with 21 available Warp Charge dice, the Eldar Seer Council began to flex its psychic muscles by putting Conceal on itself thanks to one of the Warlocks, and following it up with the Farseer putting Fortune on the Seer Council as well, giving them a 2+ rerollable cover save. This Farseer, riding his jet bike, then attempted to put Guide on his Wind Riders, but even with his reroll he only succeeded with 1 successful Warp Charge, and the Space Wolves managed to deny it, but they could not deny the Farseer from the Seer Council putting Guide onto these Iyanden Guardians. Then the Seer Council decided it was time to inflict some damage. They are disappointed that neither of the Farseers that are using the Runes of Fate this game have managed to get the Doom power, but they have got some dangerous Witchfire powers. Starting off with Eldritch Storm, they managed to tear apart 1 Grey Hunter and 1 of the Rune Priests with 2 failed Lookout Sirs, very unluckily. But then, despite landing a Vortex of Doom perfectly over 4 members of this squad, they rolled 3 ones on the destroyer table, and the only one that was wounded made his cover save. The Vortex is sitting there and has caused no damage, although that could be very problematic for these wolves as this game progresses. But that was quite a disappointing phase for the Eldar. They have a huge number of Warp Charges, but some unlucky rolls, particularly with Vortex of Doom, have meant they have not done as much damage as they would have liked. But the Eldar are still confident at dealing with these Space Wolves with overwhelming firepower in Eldar Craftworld shooting phase, turn 1. End of Eldar shooting phase, turn 1, and the Grey Hunters, the Rune Priests and the Wolfguard battle leader are no more. They were cut down in an absolutely nightmarish crossfire from these Guardians who have battle focus forward, and these jet bikers, as well as the fire dragons, the shining spears, and the 2 remaining dark reapers as well. Although the Eldar are wishing that their vortex of doom had done some more damage, as if it had, perhaps these jet bikers could have targeted a different Space Wolves unit. But have the Space Wolves been too reckless? They have lost 3 Rune Priests and a Wolfguard battle leader and a pack of Grey Hunters. That is 5 points to the Eldar. Meanwhile, these Guardians did well, managing to inflict 2 glancing hits on the front of this Rhino with their Shuriken cannon platform, but this Wave Serpent was disappointed as its bright lances could not penetrate the side armour of the same Rhino. It continues to rumble steadily forwards. We have no assaults, but we do have some Eldar jet bike moves in Eldar Assault Phase Turn 1. End of Eldar Assault Phase Turn 1, and with the threat of these Grey Hunters and their Rune Priests extinguished, these Wind Riders have banked round and they are moving forwards. It looks like they have their sights set on the packs of Long Fangs atop these bunkers and behind the barricades. Meanwhile, the Shining Spears don't think they've seen the last of the Space Wolves appearing in the heart of the Eldar lines. They have pulled back. They are still on sentry duty, ready to countercharge any deep striking enemy units. And that brings Eldar Turn 1 to a close. They are very pleased that the destruction of this squad and all of its attached characters has earned them 5 victory points. They are in the lead. It is 5 points to the Eldar, 3 to the Space Wolves, and with all of their psychic might, they have inflicted a critical blow on the Space Wolf psychic phase as well. Let's see what Njal Stormcaller can do. He will be automatically arriving thanks to the Wolves Unleashed special rules as we go into Space Wolves Turn 2. Start of Space Wolves Turn 2, and much to the relief of both the Space Wolves and the Eldar, we think the Vortex of Doom has collapsed in on itself with the roll of a double 4, and the Space Wolves reserves have arrived. Njal Stormcaller, the Wolfguard Terminators and the Wolfguard Battle Leader have appeared. They were guided in by the locator beacon on this drop pod, and as Njal sees the bodies of the Rune Priests of his Wyrdstorm Brotherhood, his eyes are filled with a terrible fury. And the Space Wolves have had a good result as the Skyclaws also made their reserve roll. They have descended on jets of flame. They were also guided in by the locator beacon. They look like they are readying themselves to take on these Iyanden Guardians. The Space Wolves have a lot of options for targets and tactics as we go into Space Wolves Movement Phase Turn 2. End of Space Wolves Movement Phase Turn 2, and these Long Fangs have once again held position. They have plenty of targets. Meanwhile, these Grey Hunters have deployed from their Rhino. They feel that the newly arrived Skyclaws can deal with these Iyanden Guardians, so they have got their eyes set on these Wind Riders. They have some plasma guns and a combi plasma in there. At least it may make the Eldar jet bikers jink. Meanwhile, the other pack of Grey Hunters are pouring into this central building. They think the best way to shut down the Seer Council is to try to get them into assault. They cannot charge this turn, but they can at least cut down a lot more Iyanden Guardians. At least that's the plan. Njal, he may run. We don't know yet. What we do know is that he is preparing another living storm as we go into Space Wolves Psychic Phase Turn 2. End of Space Wolves Psychic Phase Turn 2, and with 8 available warp charge dice, the eyes of Njal Stormcaller began to blaze with lightning. He managed to conjure up the living storm with 7 successful warp charges. The Seers threw all 24 of their dice to try and deny it once again, but they only got 6. It went off, managing to inflict 8 wounds on the Fire Dragons, taking out their Exarch and 2 other Aspect Warriors, but the 3 survivors have passed morale. If Njal can carry on successfully harnessing that power despite the Eldar Seers' attempts to deny it, that will be a huge boon for the Space Wolves. Let's see what they can do going into their second shooting phase. End of Space Wolf shooting phase turn 2, and the Eldar are cursing the fact that the Seer Council used so many of their warp charges to use all of their Witchfire powers on the squad of Grey Hunters that deployed from the drop pod, as they would have dearly liked for this Warlock to have put Conceal on the Wind Riders, for the Wind Riders and their Warlock have all been cut down by the fire of these Grey Hunters, who did lose a plasma gunner to an overheating weapon and the 2 packs of long fangs. That's another point for the Space Wolves, and this Farseer suddenly finds himself all alone. Meanwhile, the Skyclaws unleashed their flamer and their bolt pistols into these Guardians, cutting down 4 of them and their Warlock, and then combined fire from the drop pod and the 2 Rhinos managed to cut down another 2, but the 4 surviving Guardians refused to fall back, unlike the other squad of Iyanden Guardians. These Grey Hunters opened fire, cutting down 5 of them and their Warlock, and that proved too much for the 5 remaining Guardians. They are falling back out of this ruined building. Meanwhile, Njal Stormcaller and the Wolfguard, they have run, with the Wolfguard Terminators equipped with storm shields, forming a shield wall around the Stormcaller and their Wolfguard brothers. With no assaults, that brings Space Wolves turn 2 to a close. They have managed to destroy 1 more unit, which was the Wind Rider Jet Bikers, earning another point. The score is 4 points to the Space Wolves, 5 to the Eldar. As we go into the Eldar second turn, they're still in the lead. Will the Seer Council be able to have a more successful psychic phase? We shall see. Eldar Craftworlds, turn 2. End of Eldar movement phase turn 2, and with these Iyanden Guardians failing to regroup and continuing to fall back, it has fallen to the Dire Avengers to move into this building and take on the Grey Hunters. They have disembarked from their Wave Serpent. Looks like they are getting ready to battle focus into the ruins and open fire, and they are joined by the Shining Spears, who are zooming through the gap in the masonry. They have realised that their elegant weapons are not ideally suited to taking on the hulking Terminator, so they have decided to target the Grey Hunters instead. Meanwhile, the Wave Serpent looks very much like it wants to take out the Rhino by bright lance fire into its vulnerable rear armour. The last 3 Fire Dragons, they have moved out of the cover of the wrecked Falcon. They are hoping for some luck with their fusion guns. They've moved so that the closest Space Wolf is the Wolfguard battle leader, and the next closest is the Stormcaller himself, but the Eldar are expecting that it will fall to the Seer Council to deal with these Wolfguard Terminators and the Space Wolf Psyker. These Iyanden Guardians are pulling back. They're going to give fire, and the lone Farseer on his jet bike, he doesn't quite know what to do. He may well turbo boost to get back into the support of the rest of the Eldar forces. We shall see. First, we have another potentially devastating psychic phase as the Seer Council begin their incantations. Eldar Craftworlds Psychic Phase Turn 2. End of a very eventful Eldar Psychic Phase Turn 2. With 18 warp charges, the Seer Council set about the familiar routine, first putting Fortune on themselves, and then one of the Warlocks stepped forward to put Conceal on them. But he rolled a double 6, followed by a 1, followed by another double 6. He was dragged screaming into the warp, along with another Warlock from the Council. But at least the Seer Council have once again got their 2+ re-rollable cover save. Then the Farseer, using Sanctic Demonology, conjured up a vortex of doom. It scattered but managed to catch 2 Wolfguard Terminators in the blast. One was torn to pieces, but the other was protected by his invulnerable save. Then the same Warlock targeted the Wolfguard carrying the assault cannon with Purge soul and wrenched his soul screaming from his body. He collapsed to the ground dead. Then the other Farseer decided to put Guide on the Dire Avengers, who are preparing to move into this building and take on the Grey Hunters. And finally, the same Farseer tried to use Mind War on another Wolfguard Terminator, but failed to get the required warp charges, even with his Farseer reroll. That brings Eldar Psychic Phase Turn 2 to a close. Once again, they are disappointed. They were hoping for a bit more damage than that. Let's see if they can have a more successful shooting phase. Eldar Craftworlds Shooting Phase turn 2. End of Eldar Craftworlds shooting phase, turn 2, and these Iyanden Guardians managed to cut down 2 of the Sky Claws, one with their Shrieking Catapults and one with their Star Cannon, and they have battle focus back towards the Seer Council. Meanwhile, this Rhino has been wrecked by a point-blank shot into its rear armour from the Wave Serpent, but other than that, the Eldar's luck over this sector of the battlefield has been abysmal. The Dire Avengers attempted to battle focus into this building. They rolled a 1, they re-rolled with fleet, they rolled another 1. That meant they could only draw line of sight to 2 Grey Hunters, although those 2 Space Wolves were cut to pieces. The Shining Spears managed 2 hits with their laser lances on the Grey Hunters and rolled a double 1-2 wound, and these Dark Reapers only managed a single wounding hit, taking out 1 Space Marine. That is a lot of Eldar firepower for the loss of only 3 Grey Hunters. The Fire Dragons were also disappointed. They managed to get 2 wounding hits on the Wolfguard battle leader, but he bravely stepped forward and caught them both on his Storm Shield. He is unharmed. The Seer Council managed to do what the Vortex of Doom could not do and cut down 1 Wolfguard Terminator who was still caught in the vortex with a huge volley from their Shuriken pistols, and the Skyrunner Farseer, who was caught out on his own here, has turbo boosted all the way past this building to take cover over this side of the battlefield. The Eldar certainly are not having the run of luck so far in this battle. Let's see if the Shining Spears can drive back the Grey Hunters in Eldar Craftworlds Assault Phase Turn 2. End of Eldar Craftworlds Assault Phase Turn 2, and the Shining Spears dipped their lances and charged into the Grey Hunters, although one of them was blasted from the saddle by an overwatching volley of bolter fire. Then things looked like they were going the Eldar's way, as the Exarch challenged the Wolfguard pack leader, cut him down, and then lanced 2 more of the Grey Hunters as well, and the other Shining Spear managed to take out another Space Wolf. They looked to be winning comfortably, but they forgot how ferocious Space Wolves can be. The 2 remaining Grey Hunters with plasma guns dragged the Shining Spear from the saddle, and then the Grey Hunter with a power axe avenged his Wolfguard pack leader by cutting down the Exarch with a couple of sweeps of his power axe. These 3 surviving Grey Hunters have consolidated towards the Dark Reapers and the Seer Council, and that brings Eldar Turn 2 to a close. They only managed to get 1 point this turn for destroying the Rhino, and the Space Wolves have managed to get a point thanks to the destruction of the Shining Spears. The Eldar really have been very unlucky, but despite that, they are still narrowly in the lead. The score at the end of game Turn 2 is 6 points to the Eldar, 5 to the Space Wolves, as we go into Space Wolves Turn 3. End of Space Wolves movement phase Turn 3, and the turn started off with a nervous moment for both the Wolfguard Terminators and the Fire Dragons as the Vortex of Doom scattered, but luckily just landed in the small space between them. And the Wolfguard have about faced, and with Njal Stormcaller they are entering this building. They are intent upon taking out the Eldar Seers, and they have been joined by the Sky Claws, who have leapt forwards. They are hungry for glory, and these 3 Grey Hunters have decided that they too are going to target the Eldar Seers. They are leaving these Dark Reapers to the long range fire of the 2 packs of Long Fangs still in the Space Wolves deployment zone. Meanwhile, these Grey Hunters are advancing. They are intent upon cutting down these remaining Iyanden Guardians with a volley of bolter fire, or possibly even a charge. Njal Stormcaller is still on his own against considerable Eldar Psychic might, but let's see how he gets on. Space Wolves Psychic Phase Turn 3. End of Space Wolves Psychic Phase Turn 3, and this phase Njal Stormcaller had 8 Warp Charge dice available, and once again he used all of them to summon the Living Storm. This time he was only successful with 5 Warp Charges, and the Seer Council attempted to deny with their 19, but once again the Eldar failed, and that was a shame for the Fire Dragons as they were torn apart. All 3 remaining Aspect Warriors ripped to pieces by the Tempest summoned by Njal Stormcaller. Let's see if the Space Wolves can have a similarly successful shooting phase. Space Wolf shooting phase Turn 3. End of Space Wolf shooting phase Turn 3, and these Grey Hunters combined their fire with their Rhino and the drop pod, which was enough to cut down the remaining Iyanden Guardians. Meanwhile, the Seer Council are still benefiting from the protection of Conceal, and fortune. So, unsurprisingly, the Sky Claws bolt pistols achieved nothing when they targeted the Eldar Psykers, but the young Space Wolves were disappointed that they could not take out even a single Warlock with the Flamer. That covered 5 of them. Fortune kept all of the Eldar Psykers safe. The 3 Grey Hunters opened fire with their bolt pistols, unsurprisingly, achieving nothing, but on the floor above, the Dark Reapers are no more. They have been cut down, although it took the fire of both of the packs of Long Fangs to achieve it. Combined with the Fire Dragons, the 2 units destroyed in this phase have given the Space Wolves 3 points so far for the turn, but they are after a bigger prize. The Seer Council are about to face the charge of the Grey Hunters and the Sky Claws and the Njal Stormcaller and his remaining Wolf Guard. Earlier they wished they had Doom, now they are wishing they had Gate of Infinity and could have removed themselves from this situation. It was not to be. Will they survive? Let's see. Space Wolves Assault Phase, Turn 3. End of Space Wolves Assault Phase, Turn 3, and the Sky Claws, the Grey Hunters and the Njal Stormcaller and his Wolf Guard all made their charges into the Seer Council. Still furious at the death of his Wyrdstorm brothers, the Stormcaller bellowed a challenge, and sensing that the thread of his life was about to come to an end anyway, the Iyanden Farseer resignedly accepted. But he did a great job of fending off the Stormcaller's attacks. Njal did not hit him once. In return, the Farseer struck and wounded Njal Stormcaller twice, but could not penetrate the Space Wolves' massive Terminator plate. Unfortunately for the rest of the Eldar Seers, their Witchblades had no impact at all on the Space Wolves, and then the Space Wolves launched into them furiously. Although, with their invulnerable save and fortune, the Seers have proved tough. 4 of them have still been cut down, 1 by the Sky Claws, 1 by the Grey Hunters, 1 by the Wolfguard Battle Leader, and another by the remaining Wolfguard Terminators. The Eldar lost the combat by 4, but they seem to have accepted their fate. They passed their morale check with the roll of a 6. They are staying in this fight to the bitter end. That brings Space Wolves Turn 3 to a close, and it looks like they have wrested the advantage away from the Eldar in this battle. They are closing in on taking out the Eldar commanders, of course. They have also managed to get 3 victory points this turn, meaning the score at the end of Space Wolves Turn 3 is 8 points to the Sons of Russ, only 6 to the Eldar. The Eldar are struggling. They are really running out of forces with which to strike back. Let's see what they can do. Eldar Craftworlds, Turn 3. End of Eldar movement phase, Turn 3, and the fates are certainly against the Eldar today. At the start of the turn, the Vortex of Doom scattered directly on top of the fleeing Iyanden Guardians, obliterating another 2 of them, and perhaps unsurprisingly, the survivors decided they were not going to regroup. They have fled off the table. That is another point for the Space Wolves. Meanwhile, realising that there is little they can do to save their Seer Council, the Dire Avengers have all embarked on the Wave Serpent, and it is moving off. It looks like the Eldar are going to try to strike at the Space Wolves' supporting line, namely the Long Fangs, and the Farseer Skyrunner is moving up in support as well. But that is it for the Eldar. The Space Wolves certainly appear to be dominating this battle now, but the Eldar still have a supposed advantage in the Psychic phase. Let's see. Eldar Craftworlds, Psychic phase, Turn 3. End of Eldar Psychic phase, Turn 3, and although 9 out of their 10 Warlocks lie slain at the hands of the Space Wolves, the Eldar still managed to generate 15 warp charges and set about making the most of them. The Skyrunner Farseer first put Fortune on himself and then put Guide on the Wave Serpent, but with so many of their powers being Witchfire, the Seer Council have had far less impact. They were determined to get off Fortune though, even with Njal lurking right next to them with his Psychic Hood, so they decided to throw 7 of their dice at it, and they succeeded, and he decided not to deny it. With their 1 remaining dice, the Farseers and the lone surviving Warlock tried a speculative attempt at force, but this time the Stormcaller easily denied it. The Space Wolves are looking forward to the assault phase, but first we have Eldar Craftworlds shooting phase, turn 3. End of Eldar shooting phase, turn 3, and the only shooting came from the Wave Serpent, which decided to discharge its Serpent Shield and was rewarded as it managed 11 shots, and thanks to Guide, that turned into 11 hits and swept away 3 of the Long Fangs, although it was disappointed as its Bright Lances hit but rolled a 1 to wound another Long Fang, and its snap shooting Shuriken Cannon missed despite Guide, and of course the stalwart veteran Space Wolves have passed their morale check. They refuse to retreat when they think they are on the verge of achieving victory. Meanwhile, the Farseer Skyrunner, turbo boosted, he has moved all the way over the Wave Serpent and has taken up a position just out of sight behind the corner of this bunker. He's in a line breaker position, but he really does not know what to do. He is already mourning his fellow Psykers of the Seer Council. They have fortune, but there are a lot of Space Wolves surrounding them as we go into Eldar Assault Phase, turn 3. End of Eldar Craftworlds Assault Phase, turn 3, and once again the Iyanden Farseer proved adept at fending off the attacks of Njal Stormcaller. He was unharmed, but his return attacks could do nothing against Njal's mighty Terminator armour once again. And unfortunately for the Eldar, the last Warlock and the other Farseer could do nothing to the Space Wolves surrounding them, although they had fortune, which again made them quite resilient. The sheer number of attacks unleashed upon them by the Grey Hunters, Skyclaws and Wolfguard was enough to cut them both down. But this Iyanden Farseer is clearly prepared to fall on this world, as once again he has passed his morale check with the roll of a 6. That brings Eldar turn 3 to a close. The death of the Warlock and the Farseer is another 2 points to the Space Wolves. Of course, they also got another point at the start of this term when the Iyanden Guardians fled the battle. The score at the end of game turn 3 is 6 points to the Eldar, 11 to the Space Wolves. The Sons of Russ are certainly in the ascendancy, and it looks like the remaining Eldar of Craftworld Iyanden are fighting for survival. We shall see as we go into Space Wolves turn 4. End of Space Wolves movement phase, turn 4, and at the start of their turn the Vortex of Doom has scattered once again, but it is heading off towards this unoccupied corner of the battlefield, and the Sons of Russ would dearly like to move in for the kill to finish off these Eldar, but with the heroic Iyanden Farseer holding up so many of their units, the Space Wolves do not have many options. In fact, only one of their units has moved. The Grey Hunters have embarked on their Rhino once again, and it is moving off towards the Dire Avengers. The Space Wolves have been caught by surprise at the sudden attack of the Dire Avengers in their Wave Serpent on their support line. They are moving to deal with them, but they only have the Grey Hunters and the Long Fangs. Will it be enough? We shall see. As all of Njal Stormcaller's powers are Witchfires with the exception of Force, which he doesn't need anyway, being Strength 6. The Space Wolves have opted to skip their 4th Psychic phase. We go straight into Space Wolves shooting phase, turn 4. End of a very brief Space Wolves shooting phase, turn 4, and all of the Long Fangs targeted the Wave Serpent with a volley of crack missiles. The Eldar Grav Tank immediately jinked, and that saved it from 2 penetrating hits, but it did sustain a single glancing hit. The surviving Grey Hunter with the plasma gun opened fire, snap shooting from the top hatch of the Rhino, but could not hit the Eldar vehicle. That was quite an uneventful phase, but we are expecting a decisive result in the next phase as we go into Space Wolves Assault Phase, turn 4. End of Space Wolves Assault Phase, turn 4, and once again Njal Stormcaller could not hit the Iyanden Farseer with his rune staff, but the rest of the Space Wolves piled in, and the heroic Eldar Psyker has finally gone down. The Space Wolves will admit a grudging respect for his courage, but that is another point for the Space Wolves for destroying another unit. It is also a point for Slay the Warlord, and all of these wolves have consolidated. The Grey Hunters are moving back towards their wrecked Rhino. Njal and his Wolfguard have taken up a position on the balcony. Meanwhile, the Skyclaws have consolidated towards the Eldar's board edge. Looks like they have decided to try and achieve line breaker. That brings Space Wolves turn 4 to a close, and the score as it currently stands is 6 points to the Eldar, 13 points to the Space Wolves. The Eldar only have the Dire Avengers in their Wave Serpent and the Skyrunner Farseer, who is still in cover behind this bunker. We think victory has passed beyond their grasp, but we shall see as we go into Eldar Craftworlds turn 4. End of Eldar movement phase turn 4, and it is desperate times for the Eldar, but they are continuing with their plan of targeting the Space Wolves support line. The Wave Serpent has moved up and the Dire Avengers have disembarked. They are hoping that they can get a good battle focus move and take on this full strength pack of Long Fangs. Meanwhile, their Wave Serpent is moving up and intends to combine its fire with the surviving Farseer to take out these 3 Long Fangs. Although the Wave Serpent did jink, it will be firing snapshots, but the Eldar still have the Farseer to perhaps help it out with some psychic powers. In other news, the Vortex of Doom has collapsed in on itself and disappeared. Let's see how the Eldar get on in their 4th psychic phase. End of Eldar psychic phase turn 4, and although the Seer Council are no more, this Farseer, riding his jet bike, has put on an impressive display. With 9 warp charges, he started off by putting guide on the Dire Avengers, which the Wolves failed to deny. Then he managed to put fortune on himself, although he did fail in his attempt to take out one of these Long Fangs with Mind War. Still an impressive display from the last surviving Eldar Psyker. Let's see if the Dire Avengers can match his prowess in Eldar shooting phase turn 4. End of Eldar shooting phase turn 4, and if the Eldar are out of this game, no one seems to have informed the Dire Avengers, who ran forward 6 inches and then unleashed a blistering hail of shuriken fire right at their Avenger catapult's maximum range. But thanks to guide, they cut down 5 out of 6 of these Long Fangs, although disappointingly for the Eldar, the survivor has passed morale. Meanwhile, the Skyrunner Farseer managed to cut down one of these Long Fangs with a burst of fire from his underslung twin-link shuriken catapult, and another was shot down by the snap-shooting shuriken cannon on the Wave Serpent. That was a great phase for the Eldar, and we think they're going to get another point as this Farseer prepares to charge the lone surviving Long Fang from this pack in Eldar Assault phase turn 4. End of Eldar Assault phase turn 4, and Skyrunner Farseer made his charge into the last surviving Long Fang, but disappointingly for the Eldar, he could not hit with any of his attacks. But the Long Fang could do no damage to him in return. They remain locked. Although the Eldar this turn have caused carnage amongst the Space Wolves heavy weapon marines, they have still not managed to wipe out any units. They remain on 6 victory points to the Space Wolves 13, and the Space Wolves now sense an opportunity to deal with the Dire Avengers as we go into Space Wolves turn 5. End of Space Wolves movement phase turn 5, and as the Sky Claws leap into the Eldar's deployment zone to secure Linebreaker, Njal Stormcaller orders his remaining Wolf Guard and Grey Hunters to move back towards their support line. And bad news for the Eldar, the Stormcaller has brought some of his devastating Witchfire powers into range of the Dire Avengers, and the Dire Avengers have other problems as well. As these Grey Hunters have disembarked from their Rhino, they are preparing to take on the Eldar Aspect Warriors. This Long Fang is of course locked in combat, and this Long Fang is carefully selecting his target as well. Let's see what effect the Stormcaller can have in Space Wolves Psychic phase turn 5. End of Space Wolves Psychic phase turn 5, and the Stormcaller threw all 6 of his warp charge dice into summoning up the Living Storm, which he did successfully. The Iyanden Farseer could not deny it, and it easily tore apart all 4 of the Dire Avengers that were in range with 9 hits. But the Dire Avengers are stalwart. They refuse to fall back, but they will have to face the fire of these Grey Hunters in Space Wolves shooting phase turn 5. End of Space Wolves shooting phase turn 5, and as Njal Stormcaller, the Wolfguard battle leader, and the 2 remaining Wolfguard Terminators run towards these ruins, one of the Grey Hunters to their right managed to annihilate a Dire Avenger with a long range shot from his plasma gun, and the rest of the Dire Avengers have gone down as well to a highly disciplined volley of bolter fire from these Grey Hunters and their Rhino. And that left only one target available, which is the Iyanden Wave Serpent, which was hit by a crack missile from this Longfang, but it bounced harmlessly from the Eldar vehicle's armour. But with the death of the Dire Avengers, the Eldar chances are now looking extremely bleak indeed. We have one ongoing assault as the Farseer takes on the Longfang in Space Wolves Assault Phase Turn 5. End of Space Wolves Assault Phase Turn 5, and although the Farseer managed to wound the Longfang with a blow from his Witchblade, he could not penetrate the Space Wolves' power armour. In return, the Longfang could do no damage to him, and they remain locked. But with the only other Eldar unit left on the battlefield being the Wave Serpent, we are calling the game here. And the Eldar have managed to achieve 6 victory points, but the Space Wolves, thanks to Line Breaker being achieved by the Sky Claws, have managed an impressive 15 victory points. The score is 15 to the Space Wolves, 6 to the Eldar. The Space Wolves have achieved a comfortable victory, but the Eldar can feel aggrieved as they have had some terrible luck throughout this battle. Starting when they generated their psychic powers, they failed to get several of the powers they wanted, including Doom and Gate of Infinity, which immediately made the Seer Council far less effective. Their Aspect Warriors were also incredibly unlucky, the Dire Avengers failing to move back into this building to thin out the Grey Hunters before the charge of the Shining Spears pretty much ensured the Shining Spears' destruction. The Fire Dragons had no impact at all on the Wolfguard Terminators, and the fire of the Dark Reapers throughout the battle was disappointing as well. Also, the Vortices of Doom conjured up by the Seer Council seemed to have virtually no effect on the Space Wolves. The Eldar did make some mistakes. Not putting Conceal on the Wind Riders was certainly a big one, but the Space Wolves did as well, as 3 Rune Priests and a Wolfguard Battle Leader and a pack of Grey Hunters came down very recklessly and were annihilated, giving the Eldar 5 victory points early on. But the Eldar struggled after that. They only managed to achieve a single extra victory point throughout the remaining turns of this game. The Space Wolves have done well. They have achieved their objective as the Seer Council lies slain at the feet of the Stormcaller. The Imperial war machine can now take on the Eldar warhosts on this world without worrying about its every move being predicted. Meanwhile, Njal shall have to return to the Fang with the bodies of his Wyrdstorm brothers, but it is still an impressive victory for the Space Wolves. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and we will keep producing as many Warhammer 40,000 battle reports as we can. And on another note, this is our 100th video. Thanks for all your support. We hope you've enjoyed them and we hope you will continue watching. See ya!